Do you like dragons? I know I do. Good morning, reptilians. Welcome back to my channel. So it's been a little while since I've done one of these, so welcome back to the Animal Spotlight. I am super excited to talk about this one. This one is my favorite. If you've been watching a lot of Game of Thrones lately, or any medieval fictional show ever, and you want your own little dragon, this is the lizard for you. Thank you so much to my husband, who has asked me every single time I've done one of these Animal Spotlights, and to James Sewell for suggesting this awesome little creature. Let's talk about my favorite little lizard, the Red Eyed Crocodile Skink. The Red Eyed Crocodile Skink, or scientific name here that I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce, also known as tribbies, are such a cool looking little lizard. They have armor-like scales that run down their back, which actually is where the name crocodile comes from, but to me they look a lot like a little dragon. That, along with that bright red around their eyes mixed with the deep black on their bodies, makes for an absolutely stunning little skink. These guys can be found in tropical rainforests throughout New Guinea, where you can find them hiding under forest debris like logs and leaves, or climbing small branches, always near the water. More recently, these guys have been able to adapt and overcome the deforestation that is threatening their home in the wild, and they've been found more and more in coconut plantations, hiding among coconut husks. We here in the United States began importing them from New Guinea in about the 1990s, so they are fairly recent, but ever since they've been here, they have kind of exploded in the pet trade. As I said, these are called crocodile skinks because of those scales that run along their back that resembles a crocodile. But also, have you seen these guys swim? They move through the water insanely fast, and it looks so cool when they do it. They actually look like little swimming crocodiles. The lifespan of these guys isn't all that well known because they are such secretive creatures. A lot of people estimate that they will live at least 5 years if they're properly cared for, but then other sources say that they'll live 8 to 10 years, so 5 to 10 years-ish. And these guys stay pretty small. They stay at about 8 to 10 inches, with the males being larger than the females. Speaking of males versus females, males will also have raised pores at the bottoms of their feet, and sometimes they will have orangish scales that are larger than the other ones on their belly. This is a crepuscular species of lizard. That means that they are most active during the dawn and the dusk, and they'll do all their hunting during the dawn and dusk. They are insectivores, meaning that they will be eating beetles and roaches, worms, any kind of bugs in the wild. As mentioned, these guys are incredibly shy. Adults will dart away from you at the first chance that it gets, and with babies they do something really cool. They'll actually play dead, and these guys are masters at playing dead. If you didn't know that they were capable of this and you picked up a crocodile skink, you might actually think it was dead. They stiffen up their bodies and they just flat out don't move, and they also slow down their breathing to trick potential predators into thinking that they're already dead. And as both adults and babies, these guys have the ability to vocalize. Having the ability to vocalize outside of geckos is pretty rare in the reptile world, but these guys do. They have almost a bark that they will let out if they are feeling defensive or scared or anything like that, to deter people from holding them or messing with them, and it's kind of the cutest thing. It's super stressful for them along with playing dead, but it is super cute if you ever hear it. And like a lot of other reptiles, these guys do have the ability to drop their tails when they are incredibly stressed out. On to breeding. Female crocodile skinks actually have 2 ovaries, but only one of them works, meaning that they can only lay 1 egg at a time, and this starts at about 3 years old. Another thing that's pretty rare in the reptile world is the fact that these females will protect their eggs after they had them, and they'll even take care of them for a little bit after they're born. The female will actually lay her body on the egg to protect it, and she'll bite and she'll vocalize to scare off anything that might be there to harm her egg. This one I thought was super cool. According to the Cincinnati Zoo, at one point they thought that the crocodile skink was actually the missing link between modern day reptiles and dinosaurs. It may be an actual living piece of history. The Cincinnati Zoo also states that these guys actually have no natural predators. What that means is that there is nothing in the wild that that seeks out crocodile skinks to eat, like a cricket would have bearded dragons or various insectivores as a natural predator. These guys don't actually have any. So that is how they've been able to survive so long with such a low birth rate. And in the wild and in captivity, both males and females can be very aggressive and territorial towards the same sex. So if you were to keep some of these and you wanted to keep a pair, it needs to be a male-female pair, and then they can live happily ever after. Which is a perfect segue into keeping these guys in captivity. As always, my disclaimer, I'm not an expert, and this should not be taken as your only means of information if you're planning to get one of these guys. This is just a very quick care sheet. Do more research if you want to get one, and make sure that you have all the proper information to provide the best possible home for this little lizard. As I stated previously, these guys can be found in rainforests near the water. So what that means is that in captivity, these guys need a very high humidity, and it actually needs to stay at about 80%. Keeping that high of a humidity can be pretty difficult, so it's advised that you don't have a screen top, and if you do have one, you can get plexiglass or something cut to fit on top of most of it. You still want to have a little bit of air circulation, but to cover most of it to hold in that humidity, it's also advised to have a very large water dish. These guys do like to swim, so give them the opportunity to swim and they definitely will, and of course that helps bump up that humidity. And you should even look into a fogger. These are a species that are capable of dehydrating very quickly if their humidity gets down too low, so you need to take all the necessary precautions to make sure that they're not going to dehydrate. I highly suggest having a large water dish or somewhere for them to swim in the tank. That way it gives you a little wiggle room with that humidity. If you're not on top of it one day, they are able to hop into that water and rehydrate themselves if necessary. But because of these crazy high humidity requirements, these guys are excellent candidates for bioactive setups, and you guys know that I love me some bioactive setups. Plants are gonna help bump up that humidity, and they're insectivores, so you're not gonna have to worry about them eating the plants that you put in there. So yeah, they'd be pretty perfect for a bioactive setup. They also don't need any additional heat most of the time. Again, this is gonna be another very touchy thing, as too much heat could dry out the tank and cause dehydration, or it could even just overheat them and lead to the animal dying. They prefer a temperature of about 73 to 82 degrees at absolute most, so if it's the dead of winter and your house is in the 60s, you might want to throw a small heat pad or something on there. Otherwise, they're good at about room temperature. You can house a single crocodile skink or a male-female pair in a 20-gallon tank, which is the minimum requirement, but I would personally suggest to go bigger than that. That allows you to have a lot more land area and a bigger swimming wet bowl area or whatever for them, and it allows you to plan a tank better and all of that, and it just gives them more space. I also highly suggest having lots of hides and foliage throughout the tank, because again, they are very shy creatures and they're going to take every opportunity that they can to hide. The more hiding areas that you have and the more safe that that animal feels, the more likely it's gonna be to come out and interact with the world more, because it's gonna know that if it needs to, there's a place there, and there for it to dart to and hide. I also suggest blacking out the sides of your tank. Again, it just makes them feel more enclosed and makes them feel more hidden. You can do that by painting the side of your tank, by taking a black poster board and taping it to the outside of your tank, literally whatever you wanna do, but that is highly suggested just to make them feel more secure. And because they are so shy, this isn't going to be a pet that you're going to be able to handle often, if ever. I know that there are some people that have been able to get their crocodile skinks to take food from their hands, which is super cool, but they're not an animal that you're going to want to take out every day to try to handle it down, because they are such shy, flighty animals, and the risk of them darting out and injuring themselves, or you just causing a lot of stress to them, is very high. Most of the time, if you handle one of these, they're going to instantly play dead, which is very stressful for them, or they're going to scream and yell, and it's just a lot of stress. It's just not recommended to handle them very much. Again, they're insectivores, so in captivity, you're going to want to feed them dubia roaches, crickets, mealworms, waxworms, red wigglers, anything like that. As always, with any reptile, you want to make sure to kind of vary that diet up a little bit. You don't want to feed them the same two things over and over nonstop. Just give them a little bit of variety in their diet. Because of their unforgiving humidity and temperature requirements, I wouldn't suggest these for beginners. If you've worked with other animals that require high humidity or that are a little bit more touchy, then I would say 100% go for it. They are an awesome reptile to have. But if this is your very first pet, I would highly advise against getting this animal. And speaking of acquiring one of these animals, they are not the easiest to come by, and they are definitely not the cheapest. Because of the fact that they only lay one egg at a time, it makes them more rare, so they are more expensive. A captive bred crocodile skink is usually about $150 to $200, and that doesn't include shipping, and usually people decide to keep them in pairs, so you're looking at about $300 to $400 plus shipping. And for the most part, you're gonna have to get them shipped to you. Very rarely reptile shows will have them. Out of all the reptile shows I've been to, I've seen 2 or 3. So you're basically gonna have to rely on online breeders to get these animals from. And while captive bred crocodile skinks are more and more common, it's still very important to ask and confirm that the animals that you are getting are captive bred. These animals are still imported, and what that means is if you get a wild caught skink, you are gonna have to take it to the vet to be tested for parasites. Normally these parasites in the wild are okay for them because it's such a large area, it's the wild, but in captivity, those parasites tend to grow and grow and grow and make your animal more and more sick until eventually they pass away. Wild-caught crocodile skinks also tend to just randomly die for no apparent reason. It may be parasites, it may be stress, but they just spontaneously die sometimes. So that's something you also want to keep in mind if you go the wild-caught route. But if all this seems like something that you're into and you want a tiny little dragon lizard, then 100% go for it. They are still by far one of my favorite little lizards because they just look so cool, and the possibilities for setting up their tank are endless. But that's about it, guys. What do you think? Crocodile or dragon? I still think that they absolutely look like little dragons, and they are the cutest. Anyways, guys, don't forget to follow me on my other socials and like, subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications every time I put out a new video, which is every Sunday and Wednesday. Thank you so much to Feathers, Fur, and Fangs for following me on Instagram, going through like, hey, a whole bunch of my stuff. You are the bee's knees. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Bye. And while captive bred animals are more and more common in captivity,